Hello, welcome back to the Voice of the Vic podcast. There's no Ben or Mike today. They've gone off to Spain. So I'm your host, recording from Leicestershire, all right for some. I am joined by Matt Lansley from the Elm Park Royals podcast. That's a Reading dedicated podcast. Matt, how are you?
All good, thank you. I'm feeling like you've got a bit of the bad end of the deal here, not getting a trip out to sunny Spain. But
yeah, I know. Well, I'll deal with it. So, if you haven't gathered, we're here to talk about the newest member of the Watford squad. That's Tom Ince. We talked about him the other day. He played 38 games last season, scored 9, assisted 4 or 5. The number varies. And he picked up Reading's Player of the Season award. So, yeah, he's been announced today. The fee is rumoured to be 50 grand. It's a 2-year deal with an option of another year. I think that's brilliant. So, but what do you think, Matt? How are Reading fans feeling, and how are you feeling?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, we knew that a lot of the players that we got last year, they had relegation clauses in, be it either players able to pretty much get out of their deal. If they went down, it was kind of the deals that we had to put on the table to players. Tom Ince kind of being one of them. There's a few others that have been rumoured. Obviously, Naby Sarr also went. He activated a relegation clause. Some people think Andy Yiadom has got a relegation clause as well. He signed a contract last summer. It's just a reflection of where the club was last season, to be honest. I think fans would probably rather see those players probably leave rather than being stuck on a championship wage in League One, because I think ultimately the players that signed those contracts probably had in their negotiations that they weren't going to accept, a wage decrease. And I could probably fully put Tom Ince in that camp. I don't think he'd want to play League One football. He's not a League One footballer anyway. He's not. I know he was part of a relegated team, but he's not League One quality. So yeah, it's. I think some fans are kind of like, well, off you go then. Kind of think there's still quite a bit of animosity because of the Ince name and kind of what Paul Ince did to the team last year, and disregard for really the fans and the club. But yeah, I think a lot of fans are just aware of the nature of the situation, really, and yeah.
So before joining Reading, he'd had a few years where he'd struggled to really make any kind of mark on anything. He scored 8 and got 3 assists in the 3 seasons prior to joining Reading. But then when he joined you, he sort of exploded a little bit. He had a great season. What clicked for him?
That probably differ between who you ask as a Reading fan. I think a lot of Reading fans, again, playing under Papa Ince, probably will point towards that as a motivator. I think Stoke fans, Huddersfield fans, they all kind of said to us that, if you get him on your day, you've got a brilliant player. They just never saw that really in any kind of abundance. So they were left frustrated by Tom Ince. His attitude was always questioned by those clubs as well. How that then changed at Reading, who knows really, because virtually his entire time at Reading was under Paul Ince. When he came in as manager, I think he only had 2 games prior to Ince coming in, where he actually played and played not under his dad. And then when his dad left, he was injured, so he never played actually after Paul Ince also went. So it's a bit of an unknown. All we can really talk about is, I guess, the time that he had at Reading, and kind of under his dad or not, he was a very good player. Whether or not some Reading fans would like to admit it, he was our player of the season for a reason. It wasn't hard, to be honest, to stand out in the Reading team last year, given how poor pretty much everyone was. But he was by far the best player in the team. He was quick, he was direct, he would run his socks off, which was something that was very unlike Tom Ince of the past 3-4 years. He seemed like he had a desire and a real will to play football again, which kind of, I guess, went missing, like I say, in the previous seasons. It kind of, I think a lot of people drew comparisons of his time back before when he was at Derby, when he was a really effective player, real top end championship player. Probably not quite the same player as he was then. Probably lost a bit of pace. Still quite good on the ball. His end product has got better though. He was putting in good balls, and I mean he was picking up goals again, which was one of the things that dried up over the previous years. But yeah, probably the one thing that you'd look at his time in Reading, even though he was our top assist player, I think virtually all of them came from set plays. So yeah, mate. Probably still got a bit of work to do kind of in open play, creating chances. But at the end of the day, he was our top scorer. So he was kind of scoring more than he was assisting, you could say.
Yeah, so you mentioned set plays there. See, we are absolutely crap at them. We are hopeless. We signed a player, Imran Loser. He was good at them at his old club. He can't beat the first man now. Is Tom Ince guaranteed to beat the first man on a corner?
Depends how tall that first man is, I'd say. No, joking aside, he was on the whole, his set piece delivery was good. Like we were actually threatening from set pieces last year, which again we'd struggled in prior years with that side of the game. Free kicks though as well, he's brilliant at. He scored a couple of free kicks for us last year. He can really crack one from outside the box as well. So whether it's corners, if it's a direct free kick, an indirect free kick, I think you've got a good set piece taker there. Might not beat the first man on every occasion, but I think he's a solid set piece taker really for the championship level.
That's good. You speak as if he's sort of split opinion then. Can you just play devil's advocate for a minute? What are some of the Reading fans not liking about him?
The Ince name. I think a lot goes for that, because I've probably not seen a manager so hated by a fan base really as Paul Ince. By the end, he was absolutely you wouldn't find one fan that kind of really says much of a good word about him. That naturally falls into, if your son's then playing for the same team, it doesn't really shine a good light. But for Tom Ince, he had a really good first half of the season for us last season. The second half of the season, there was probably where the wheels maybe came off a bit, and one thing that was always a constant was him shouting on the pitch, shouting at teammates. Sometimes not very pleasant compliments either, which was picked up by people on the sideline. One of the main incidents that happened, I think it was a home game against Hull, where Tom Holmes, our centre back, he played the ball out of play. It was a dreadful pass to Tom Ince, but he then volleys it back about 50 yards in frustration, and then calling him a number of expletives, right, which not many people really took much liking to, because It was literally like the dummy was completely spat out at that point. There'd been occasions before where you could see things simmering as well with kind of his feedback, but I mean, he said it on. Well, it was discussed on Sky Sports after a game in an interview. You had Lucas Shaw and Tom Ince kind of in an interview together, and they kind of joked with the interviewer about Tom Ince and the running and kind of the I think they described it as a leader kind of personality that Ince had taken up on the pitch, but yeah, it was more kind of just shouting abuse, really, seemingly at teammates. And I think a lot of fans got very bored of that by the end. There's a way that you communicate with teammates, and there's a way that you gee your teammates up, get people up for the fight, etc. But it seemed like he was crossing the line on too many occasions, and it was more like a spoiled child, really. I think Paul Ince described it as taking accountability and defended him by saying that. But yeah, that's really the biggest thing with him, and it goes into his work ethic as well. Kind of, it's probably a thing that's plagued his career, Tom Ince. His work ethic. What happens when it's not going his way, when things aren't coming off? He's going through a goal drought. He's struggling in a game. Does he just down tools? Or is he up for a fight? First half of last season, he seemed like he was. second half of the season, the wheels really started to come off, as it did, obviously, with his dad managing. That's kind of really where a lot of the animosity comes from, just a mixture of just the name and work ethic, and
Well, that does bring me on to the next point. He's been labelled as a bit of a bad egg. Is it just the shouting bit, or is there more to it than that?
No, I think a lot of it is the shouting element, and like I say, he might see it as trying to be accountable and trying to, be a leader on the pitch. But there's different and better ways to show that you're a leader on the pitch than just bad mouthing your teammates on the pitch. He always used to say, kind of, what stays on the pitch stays on the pitch. What gets said on the pitch, stays on the pitch. But like I say, when you've got fans that are within earshot of things that are being said, and then they get circulated, I mean, it's not really what you want to be seeing or hearing from a professional, because then it just looks like you're a spoiled child spitting your dummy out, and almost just trying to be someone that you're not really. It's whether it's being a bit too much of a loose cannon, or, like I say, if it is more of an attitude thing, history might tell you that it's more of an attitude thing, because it's not the first time it's kind of happened and people have seen it. Just hope, obviously, for you guys that you see the better side of Tom Ince, because he's a good player. He's a really good player. Like I say, he won Player of the Season for a reason. He won us multiple amounts of points last season, and he can do that for a team. Hopefully you see that more than the shouting, bad mouthing, throwing the toys out of the pram Tom Ince.
Yeah, well, we are used to that on our pitch. A lot of shouting at each other, not everyone on the same page. So
he might fit in perfectly then.
Yeah, that version, he'll fit in perfect. If not, then he'll probably be off in Jan. So I understand he's played a lot of positions for you this season. Where do you think he's best?
He's best probably still out on the right wing, I'd say. He spent a time kind of as a number 10, kind of either playing off a striker or playing slightly behind a striker. But I think he's still probably best out on the right and cutting in on his left. Like I say, multiple times he finds himself one-on-one. He's still got a trick in him. He's not as quick, like I say, as he used to be, but he's still got some pace. He's not a slouch. And he's kind of got the freedom to do a bit of everything out on the right. I feel, he can create a bit, he can put in a good cross, take on a defender, cut in and have a shot. I'd probably say that's the best position for Tom Ince. If I was going to be playing him in a team, that's where I'd be playing him.
Right. So our idea is that we think he's brought in as backup. We're hoping he's not the main man, because he can blow hot and cold. So do you think he'd do well sort of as an impact player off the bench, maybe half an hour every game, sort of stand in maybe every now and then?
I think a lot of it will come down to his mindset at that point, to be honest. If he's been brought in as a backup, have you still got, will it be Ismail Assar, or has he been sold? Or
he's most likely being sold, but he's got a year left.
Okay, fair enough. Well, if he was up against him, he's probably not going to break in above Sarr, I'd say. I think most fans would probably be in agreement with that, probably Watford fans as well. There's too much to Sarr's game to really cut out. He's not really a championship player, I'd say. He's probably slightly too good on that side. So if he came in, if he's got a player like that in front of him, how frustrated is he going to get? Maybe not getting the opportunities, getting the playing time. Will his mindset then kind of dither a bit and drop off? History might kind of point towards that. Because the one thing that he had at Reading was pretty much starting week in, week out. There was only really one or two games before the end of the season where he didn't play, and it was more he needs a rest at this point, because he's played every single minute of every single game. How he would do as a backup, it's just going to be the mindset piece. I think keep him hungry, keep him feeling like he's being included, getting minutes. He might kind of flourish like that if he's happy to take a role like that. But I guess time will tell on that front.
Right. Lastly, from me, how do you think we'll do when his dad comes through the door in October?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Seemingly wherever he goes, his dad follows. I hope for your sake you do not get graced with the presence of Paul Ince, honestly. Yeah, don't put that image in anyone's mind. It's not worth it. I saw a rumour the other day that he might have been going to Sheffield Wednesday, which was soon after quashed, but I just felt sorry for him at that point, because it's no one deserves to have that man as manager. I hope for your sake that Fleury and Ishmael can stay a bit longer, so you're not faced with the inevitable September international break firing that seemingly happens at Watford.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't surprise me if it was Ince that came in. We've been going for that sort of older English manager lately, so yeah, but that's all from me. So thank you, Matt. Good luck for the season. I'm intrigued to see how Tom Ince does. I think it could be a really good signing. But yeah, so thanks everyone for tuning in, and see you in the next one.